keeping your parrot happy, healthy, and safe. So why am I here talking to you about this today? I'm really passionate about the weird and wonderful animals getting the appropriate care that they deserve. It was only about 10 years ago I had a pet snake that was quite ill, and I couldn't find a vet for the life of me who would actually help me. And I thought that this just isn't right. So my goal in life is to train everyone in the veterinary industry on how to deal with these animals. So I'm a Certificate 4 veterinary nurse. I'm accredited. I've also got a certificate in fear-free handling of animals. And I've also got a diploma in vet nursing in zoological and exotic species. I've been a vet nurse for about 16 years now. I've got experience in normal cat and dog clinics. I was head nurse of an exotic only clinic. I've also worked in lots of wildlife centres and zoos around Australia. So I've got quite a varied bit of experience. So bird ownership. This is probably one of the most popular areas of my business is birds, because they are just becoming so popular. People nowadays are moving away from having a big backyard with a dog to, having a smaller apartment in a city, but they still really want that companion who really interacts with them, and that's where birds come into this. This beautiful bird, you can probably tell from the photo, was not very happy with me. It had just come into the clinic as a stray. I did find a lovely home with one of my friends, actually, and I'm glad to say that he's now accepting of me. He was not so accepting of me back then. All right, so starting with husbandry. So this is where we really need to be looking at how we provide their cages or aviaries or where they live. So we need to be keeping them away from predators. So obviously not having them out in the backyard when you're not there, because obviously they could fly away for one, or they could get predated on by other birds. So it's not just the physical threats, it's also the perceived threats. So even though they can be in an aviary where you know that they can't be predated on by the neighbour's cat, if they feel that they can be eaten by the neighbour's cat, they are going to be very stressed. So it's not just the physical dangers, it's their mental health we've got to really look at. So this can mean providing areas in the aviary or cage where they can actually escape and hide and feel that they are safe, even though we know that they are. This also means that when they're in the house, we need to keep them away from cats and dogs. I know that there's a lot of photos online about, the bird is snuggled up with the dog or the cat. It's very heartwarming. However, I always cringe at these because every animal has its limits, and it could just take one little nip from a bird and that cat's going to turn around and bite. And unfortunately, one bite is enough to kill our birds. So, the cat and the bird may have lived together for 10 years, no problem whatsoever. And then one day it just happens. So really, I really want to push that across that we really need to be keeping them away from these predators. We also need to make sure that any enclosure is easy to clean. So if we're not cleaning them regularly, the food can actually accumulate on the bars or on the floor, and it can actually breed bacteria and fungus. This fungus and bacteria can actually cause severe respiratory problems, so breathing problems. As you probably know, the breathing problems can actually kill them. So we really need to make sure that we're really hygienic. So, even daily cleans, and then once a week having a really good scrub down. We need to have fresh water daily. So even though the water may look clean, a lot of birds, for some reason, like to dunk their food in the water. I don't know why they do it, but a lot of species do. So this can promote bacteria growth in that water. The other really fun thing that parrots like to do is poo in their water. So obviously that, again, builds bacteria in that water. We need to have access to light and dark cycles. So with us, that circadian rhythms, the daytime light and the night light is really important for us. If we don't know when it's day or night, we start to go a little bit loopy. It's the same with these guys. They rely heavily on the light and dark cycles, not just for their daily mental health, but also for their hormones. So the length of the day can actually signal when they're coming into spring or when they're coming into the season when they're going to reproduce. So if we don't allow access to a normal light and dark cycle, this gets really out of whack. I have actually seen a really sad case where a bird was kept in total darkness for its whole life, and it had severe mental health issues. So I can report that it did get rehomed and it is actually doing really well now, but it is quite an important thing. So this isn't a great photo here, but this photo is of bumblefoot. So hopefully you've never heard of bumblefoot or needed to know what it is, but basically it's an infection in the feet. So they get this from being on really rough surfaces, so concrete, or some people wrap perches in sandpaper for their nails. This actually causes abrasions on their feet. And this is where bacteria enters the skin and then it starts to fester and it can actually get into the bones, which fortunately isn't something that we can fix. So the way around this is by offering perches that are varied sizes. So if they're constantly using the same perch of the same size, they can actually develop this as well. So they need to be varied sizes and not too abrasive, but not too smooth as well. It also, if we don't provide perches, they can actually get feather damage on their tails. So if they're on the ground, as you can imagine, their long, beautiful tails are getting swept through all the poo and getting caught on the newspaper or whatever's on the ground, and they're getting quite tattered from this process. The bird will then try and remove the feces from the feathers, and again, that is damaging these feathers. So we really want to preserve these feathers by giving them perches. It's also really good for mental enrichment because birds in the wild, if they're in the branches, they're safe. If they're on the ground, they are in a lot of danger because they're going to get predated on by cats or dogs or even other birds of prey. So if they're in a cage and they don't have a way to get up into a perch, they're going to feel that they're in danger. As I mentioned before, they may not be in any danger, but if they think they're in danger, we've got an issue. So enrichment, this is a super important area. We've got a few enrichment webinars on our website actually that you may be interested in. They're not directly designed for vet nurses, especially we've got one enrichment webinar called Improving Animal Welfare Through Behavioural Enrichment. And it really goes into why and how we provide this for all types of animals, even down to cows and zoo animals. So for birds, these guys are so intelligent, which I'm preaching to the choir. You've all got birds. You probably know this better than anyone. So we really need to be keeping their mental, their brain moving. So we can do that with a few different techniques. So a forage tray, which is simply just a kitty litter tray, and you can put leaves or shredded newspaper in there and then scatter a bit of their favourite food in there. So they've got to forage and dig around in it. We can do scatter feeds. So such as this picture on the left here, the owner's hidden some of her favourite seeds all around the perch and the enclosure in some of the little hollows that she's got. So she's got to really search for it. Puzzle toys are really good, especially for the older, no, sorry, not the older birds, the more intelligent birds like cockatoos or macaws. Some of the smaller parrots may not be interested, but it's definitely worth investigating. You may even be able to get less challenging puzzle toys. The other thing you can do is change the cage furniture. So if they've got a perch here, a branch here, and a tunnel here, if this is going to stay forever in these positions for years, this is going to get very boring. So maybe once a week you could take these out and replace them with something a little bit different. You really do have to gauge your pet though. If they're a super stressy pet, they may not appreciate such a change. So you may just need to change one thing at a time. It really depends on the temperament of your bird. We can also provide them with flight time. So ideally, it'd be amazing if we could let them out in the backyard and they could fly around and then come back in at night. But we all know that, unfortunately, this is a dangerous thing. They can get lost, they can get eaten by larger birds or cats and things like that. So this isn't really an option, and we don't all have a fly aviary in our backyard. But if it's possible, in the house, we can make sure that it's nice and safe, they're not going to hurt themselves. We can let them fly around the house. This is really, really important for their mental welfare, because in the wild, they're flying, and in captivity, they're not able to use that ability. So it must really affect them. So being able to fly can change a lot for these guys. This is why I sort of don't advocate for wing clipping, because it can be very stressful for them not being able to do it. It would be like us, not having a foot and not able to walk. It is a very stressful thing because we are walkers. These guys are flyers. So we really need to allow them that freedom. So diet. This is a very big issue for pet birds. So when you go to a pet store, you buy a bird and you buy some bird seed. It's called bird seed for a reason. Unfortunately, a seed-only diet is the leading cause of mortality and morbidity in pet birds. So this means that if you feed them a seed-only diet, they have a shorter lifespan, and during that lifespan, they can develop severe illnesses. So when I'm talking about an all-seed diet, this is where this is where it's going to get a little bit technical. So I will explain out some of these terms. But basically, seeds are high in fat, which is a massive problem in itself, but they're also low in the nutrients that they do need. So there's not enough vitamin A, which can be linked to mite infestations, like scaly mites. They can get salivary and mucus gland blockages. They're immunocompromised. So this means that their immune system isn't able to function properly, and they're more susceptible to respiratory issues such as aspergillosis. Hopefully you've never heard of aspergillosis, but it's a really, really severe respiratory infection. It also makes them susceptible to gastrointestinal tract infections, really abnormal bone growth, and reproductive issues. So if the only reason that seed was bad was because it was low in vitamin A, this would be enough for me to say no seed, but it just keeps going on. So there's not enough calcium, which can lead to rickets or bowing or bending of the limbs. It's low in vitamin E, which can lead to muscle weakness. It also contributes to this and poor immune system. And they're susceptible to protozoal infections, which is basically pathogens in their feces. It's low in vitamin B2, also known as riboflavin. This can cause growth retardation, poor cartilage and collagenous and nerve tissue growth. So this is basically just their skin and connective tissues. It's just not growing quite right. There's also too much phosphorus, which causes bone demineralization, so just softening of the bone, and renal damage, which is kidney damage. It's also low in iodine, which can lead to reduced growth, stunting, neurological signs, so the brain's just not functioning quite right, and regurgitation, which is similar to vomiting. And as I mentioned, it's really high in fat. So this can lead to fatty liver disease and atherosclerosis. So this is a really fancy word for buildup of cholesterol in the arteries. So think about if we were having Big Macs three times a day, every day, we're going to get liver problems and we're going to have a really high buildup of cholesterol. This high buildup of cholesterol can lead to heart attacks, basically. So this is not the only problems wrong with a seed-only diet, but this is the main issues. So other food to avoid are avocado. I know that it's super healthy for us and we should all be eating avocado every day, but for these guys, it actually kills them. So it can actually kill them within about an hour or so. So if you accidentally give your bird avocado or they accidentally get into your smashed avocado on toast, you need to rush them to a vet so that they can wash out their crop, because this causes fluid around the heart and they will pass away. It's quite horrible. Alcohol for obvious reasons. Meat. There are some species of bird that can have meat, but certainly most parrots in the wild aren't usually meat eaters. And if they do eat meat, it's because the rest of their diet is quite balanced. If we're giving meat to our pet birds, it's actually got too much protein. And their kidneys can't actually handle this protein. And that's when we start getting, they're called uric acid crystals. So these crystals start to build up around their joints and their organs. And it can actually be really painful, and to the point where they may need to be euthanized. So we really need to avoid that excess protein in their diet. Fruit, seeds, and pits. So some of these, like apricot pits, they can actually have cyanide in them. So we really need to avoid giving that to them. Chocolate, it's very similar to the way we should give chocolate to dogs. It's got something called theobromine in it. This theobromine can actually make the heart go really fast, and they can pass away from it. With dogs, it depends on the size of the dog and how much chocolate you give. They can just have a little bit of diarrhea, but if there's a lot, it can kill them. But with birds, because they are so tiny, even a little bit of chocolate can have that same effect. So we really need to avoid it. Caffeine, similar effect to the chocolate. Onion and garlic. I know that the internet has many wonderful and weird remedies. I've seen a lot of people say use garlic for worms or mites. Onion and garlic is actually going to be causing degenerative anemia with these guys. So problems with the blood, we really need to avoid that. Salt and dairy, these can actually make them quite unwell as well. So what do we feed them now that we know what not to feed them? What can we feed them? So a really good diet should consist of a really high quality pellet. So like a Wambaroo or a Veta Farm pellet. And the packet should say sort of how much, but it's usually between 3% to 10% of the bird's body weight per day. So that's quite a small portion that they're needing. And then, excuse me, and then on top of that, we need to be giving them a lot of veggies and a little bit of fruit. So this on the left here is before we've chopped it up. What we tend to do is get a chopper, put them all in there, just chop it up into tiny little bits, put it into an ice cube tray and freeze it. So every day we can just pop out a little ice cube, defrost it, and it's got a lot of different veggies in there. So it's really good to get all those vitamins and vitamin A and things in it. We can also be offering them some foliage. Some native foliage is really good for them. So they can eat the nectar out of the flowers, and it's not just for the diet, it's also for mental stimulation. There's new sounds being produced by these leaves. They can hide in them, play in them. There's little bugs that they can chase and eat and smell. It's really, really good for them. So moving on. How do we know when our pet is unwell? A lot of people say with exotics, especially because they're not predator animals, they're prey. So they act differently to our cats and dogs. If in the wild they're feeling a bit unwell and then they show the world that they're unwell, they're going to get eaten. So they need to, if they're feeling unwell, they need to pretend that they're feeling really good so that the predators will pass them by. It's the same in our pets. So if they're feeling a little bit unwell, they're going to be doing everything possible to act like they're normal. So quite often people come into the vet with a really unwell bird and say, 2 hours ago, it was completely fine. It was eating, talking to me 100%, and now it's basically on death's door. This is because it's been hiding it. So what we need to do is be really, really aware of the subtle signs of pain and illness so that we can pick up on these, but it's not always possible. But if we've got if we've got these in the back of our mind, hopefully we can pick things up a bit earlier. So signs of pain or illness are lethargy, so just a little bit less active, a little bit less enthusiastic about getting out of the cage and interacting. Shivering, being a bit fluffed up, like in this photo here. The eyes are closing. It's lifting up one leg. It's got an awkward gait. So what this is a gait is when they're walking. So if they're not walking quite normally, they've got a little bit of a limp or just not walking quite right. So we can't put a finger on it, but it's just not quite right. This can be a sign of that as well. Anorexic, so this means that we've just stopped eating. They're isolating themselves, so they're not wanting to interact with you or their cage mates when they're normally a really social bird. They're unusually aggressive. So normally they're really quite friendly, but all of a sudden they're getting a bit nippy when you come near them. Or alternatively, if they're normally really nippy and they're all of a sudden letting you touch them and handle them, this can also be a pain that there's something going on. And a really big one is not perching. So they're just sitting on the bottom of the cage, not wanting to sit up. This is a severe sign that there is definitely something going on. This photo here is a quite extreme photo. So this cockatoo has beak and feather disease, or cytosine beak and feather disease. So it's not going to be quite as obvious as this. This is quite extreme. But other signs of illness are visible blood. So if you see that there's blood on the toe or the skin or eyes coming out the mouth, this is definitely a problem. They're pulling feathers. This can be a mental issue, so they're just bored and they need more stimulation, or it can actually be a sign that there's something internally going wrong. Anorexia, so stopping eating, weight loss, vomiting. They don't vomit in nice big piles like a dog. They tend to flick their head. So you'll see the vomit up on the walls more than anything. Again, not perching. Torticollis. So this is another big fancy word for saying that they're twisting their head up and looking at the sky and they're not righting themselves. They've got abnormal feather growth. So such as this picture here of the head on that beautiful crest that's missing. Dull beak and feet. Or overgrown beak and nails. So when a client calls up and says, I'd like to bring my bird in because it needs a nail trim, the nails are quite long, I start thinking, okay, this isn't just coming in for a nail trim. I need to talk to them about potentially getting a blood test and having a full health check, because usually nails don't just grow long. There's usually, not usually, but there's quite often something else going on. So we definitely need to just clear out that the liver and other signs are fine. So one of the main, the main issue that pet birds come in for is the diet. Probably 9 times out of 10, it's because the diet's incorrect. The other times, usually it's because there's an unsafe toy given. So this toy in this picture here on the left, this was given to my friend for Christmas for her birds. It was a lovely gesture. It was sold in a pet store, so of course it's going to be safe. Unfortunately, all pet toys, that we don't have a regulating body. So any child's toy has to go through rigorous tests and make sure that it is actually safe for our children. Unfortunately, for pets, there's just no regulating body here in Australia. So we really need to be doing our own checks of toys and making sure that they are safe. So my friend is quite savvy. So she pulled apart this toy and had a look, and she took out all the unsafe things. So in the top right here, all of this metal here is unsafe. So heavy metal toxicity is quite a big problem with birds. So zinc and lead can be hidden in metal for our pets. So a lot of this metal here is actually unsafe, like the metal clapper in that bell and a few of the little smaller pieces were actually heavy metal. So if birds are playing with it, tiny small pieces will chip off and they ingest it, and it can actually kill them. It can kill them quite quickly, or it can build up over time and cause neurological issues and death eventually. The main metal that is safe is stainless steel, but we also need to make sure that it's not just coated, because that coating can come off. So we really need to be making sure what type of metal it is before we give it to our pet. The other issue with this metal is that chain, the toes get caught in it or tongues get caught in it, and those D-rings. This particular owner, about a year ago, her bird was able to twist off the little link on the D-ring and get it actually caught on the beak. It was only that she was walking past and she saw that her bird was in distress that she could help it. So all of these things on this toy were quite unsafe. Down the bottom, some of the plastics as well were easily broken. So any large bird, anything larger than a budgie basically could break some of that plastic off and ingest it. So what is safe is cardboard, plastic that's not going to be chipped off, and paper. So there is a few really good brands out there that do make bird safe toys, but you do have to do a bit of research. The one that I do really like is Aussie Parrot toys. They have all natural toys, perches, things like that. They're made from native branches and seed pods that she gets from the wild, and she sterilizes them and puts them together. They're really quite nice, actually. So we need to make sure that the heavy metal isn't on there, that we can't swallow any of the items. Rope toys are really particularly bad because they actually, when they're chewing the rope, it breaks up into bits, and that can actually come off and swallow and cause an impaction, which can actually kill them. Any sharp pieces that can be swallowed, or the feet, tongue, and beak can get caught. Again, I'm just going to stress this animal attacks. This photo is super duper cute, but it really makes me nervous. We really need to keep them away from our cats and dogs. Also with cage mates, we shouldn't be putting a large bird with a smaller bird because they will kill that small bird. We also should be careful with introducing even from the same species because they all have different personalities, and you know yourself, you won't get along with everyone in a room. It's the same with these guys. So a slow introduction, and you've really got to know their personalities to make sure that they're going to get along. The other one is rodents. So we really need to be making sure that we are cleaning aviaries and cages so that these rodents can't get in there. Unfortunately, rats will attack and kill birds. So you wouldn't think that they'd be able to catch them, but I've seen it way too often, unfortunately. So husbandry-related illnesses. So this is in terms of cage care and their little house. So aspergillosis, as I mentioned, is a severe respiratory illness. This is caused by food that's a little bit stale and gone a bit mouldy or powdery, or if you're not cleaning out the veggies and they start to get a bit mouldy, these spores can get inhaled, and that's where they can get actually these little hard plaques in their lungs. Super hard to get rid of, and it can actually kill them. Mental illness is definitely a husbandry-related illness, so we need to be providing enrichment, different toys as mentioned, and toxicity is a huge one. So that's the toxicity from not just their toys, but from the environment. So if you're using a non-stick Teflon frying pan, the vapors from that can actually kill them. So if you have a pet bird in the house, I would ask you to throw away a non-stick frying pan, or at the very least pop them outside while you're doing that. Some candle burning, the fumes from that, and another one is smoke. So if you've got a neighbour who's having a barbecue and it's particularly smoky, I will put them inside just so that they're not having that experience breathing that in. I'm not sure where you're all from, but here in Victoria, at the start of 2020, we had significant bushfires over the other side of the state. So it was quite a while away, but that smoke was blown over this way. And we had a lot of pet birds that were sitting near an open window just completely pass away just from this bushfire smoke that was hundreds of kilometres away. So you've really got to be aware of all the fumes in your environment. Diet-related illnesses, liver disease and heart disease. So this is why I'm really, really passionate about getting pets onto an ideal diet. So as I mentioned, the seed-only diet causes liver disease and heart disease. It can be a little bit tricky. So if you've got a bird that's just been on seed and you want to get them onto a really good diet, you can't just provide a really good diet for them because they're going to turn their nose up at it, especially cockatiels. Cockatiels are particularly stubborn with this thing. So it would just be like us. If we're eating Big Macs every day, they're super yummy, and then someone gives us a salad and said, this is what you're eating from now on, we're going to resent that. We're not going to want that. So we need to do this slow. So, okay, we've decided that we know that this is a bad diet, we're going to put them onto a good one. What we do is we get a bowl and put 90% of their old seed diet in there and 10% of the new pellets in there. Stir it all up. They're definitely going to avoid the pellets. They're just going to eat the seeds, but they're going to get the idea that, okay, this is in my food bowl. This is food. I'm not going to touch it now, but I know that this is food, just like a toddler. So you just have to keep persisting. A few days later, increase that pellet content to about 20%. A few days later, 30%, and keep going like that. They will eventually try it. The more often it's put in front of them, the more likely they will be to try it. And then eventually, once you've got a really good mix of it and they are sort of eating some seeds, some pellets, you can reduce that seed right out. Some of them are a little bit more hesitant. So we can make up a bird bread recipe. There are some great ones online. So it's basically just a muffin or a bread made out of pellets, so the really good healthy product with a few seeds sprinkled in it. So they've got to chew through all the really healthy pellet bread just to find these seeds that they want. So they're still getting that really good nutrients in, and they're thinking, okay, well, this isn't too bad then. Maybe I'll try it next time. And just be really, really slow, really, really persistent. So it's not something that you should give up on. If you're feeling like this isn't working, you really want to give up, come back to this recording and watch again why you're doing it. Sometimes you can also contact your local exotic clinic and get a bit more help that way. Some places do actually board your bird for a few weeks and get them onto a boot camp so that they actually help you get them onto that really good food. Parasites. This is gross. So there's quite a few different parasites that these guys can have. So gizzard worms, strongyles, capillaria, roundworms, coccidia. Just really fancy names for different types of worms. So what we recommend is fecal testing. So taking a sample of fresh poo into your vet clinic and getting them to look at it under the microscope, usually about every 6 months. If there's no worms or no worm eggs, perfect, you don't need to do anything. If, however, they find some worms, I would suggest getting some worming treatment from that vet. As I mentioned, there's a lot of internet homeopathic products concoctions that you can make at home, but a lot of them are really unsafe. A lot of the ingredients in these are deadly. So a lot of them are based on garlic, which I've just gone through, that is dangerous for them. So I know that we don't like giving any medication if we don't need to, but I feel that this is definitely a case where we need to give medication to get rid of these worms. Mites, so burrow mites or Nematococcus. This is usually linked to vitamin A deficiencies. So if you notice this, we recommend you going to see the vet, or if they're just scratching or has a scaly face or legs, go see the vet, because they can simply give a bit of medication to get rid of that. But then I'd also be looking at the diet as well. So these excuse me. So these are my references. So if there's anything you're wanting a bit more information about or wanting to know the source, you can head to these websites or research papers or textbooks. Otherwise, I am more than happy for you to send me an email. If you've got any questions now, feel free to type them in, and I'll see if I can answer them all for you. Otherwise, if you go away and you think, a week later or a month later or a year later, I've got this really, I've just got this question about my pet or my new pet or my neighbour's pet, about their husbandry or diet or mental health, feel free to send me an email. I'll help as best I can. I unfortunately can't give specific veterinary advice. So if your pet's unwell, I really can't help in that situation. It's where I'd recommend you talk to your local vet or your exotic pet vet. Otherwise, have a look at my socials. I've always got some information on there, a few other pet owner related talks as well. And then on my website, exoticvetnursetraining.com, I've got that enrichment talk that I think would be really, really valuable for you guys. Right, so let's see if there's any. No, I haven't got any questions. Okay. Hopefully I've answered all your queries. All right, so after this, I'm going to be emailing out a recording to your email. So within a day or two, you should have that in your inbox. So feel free to watch it again, and because you may have missed some things. But yeah, look, if there's anything that you think of in the short-term future, certainly get in contact. All right, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you coming along. Oh, we do have one question. Oh, that was great. Thank you. Thank you. I really hope that you guys got something out of it. And I hope that you've all got them on really great diets and really good husbandry. But look, if you don't, I hope you've learned something. All right. See you later, guys.